Well, we're back. This is part two of the full tank tour. Let's see, where do we want to go with this? Well, we're going to pick up in the garage where, after we left off with the tanks in the house, figured I'd cut this up into at least a couple videos because otherwise it'd be way too long. People get bored. They don't want to watch it all. I don't blame them. But I'll tell you, when I watch longer videos like this, a lot of times what I'll do is hit that pause button, stop it, hit the save to watch later, and come back and watch it later and break it up into bits and pieces, bite-sized chunks, as it were. So anyway, grab yourself something to drink, something to munch, and we're going to start in the garage with my 20-gallon long tanks that I've gotten, and we'll take it from there. Thanks for being here. Got a couple tanks side by side here. Two of these are endo in. They are 20 longs. They go back their ways. And then I've got a little 5.5 gallon here. And this one I set up for these little peacock gudgeons. Now there were 5. I see 2. I'm hoping the others they were around for a long time, so I'm hoping the others are just in the rock pile back there. And there are also 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 stir-by cories in here. And I know they'll come and go out of the rock pile. And we can see a few of them here tucked against the rocks right there, that big rock. And there's another one in the back. There's another one down the side. There's a couple of them back there. So they look like they're all over back there. So they look like they're doing all right. Maybe I need to come up with a little power head or something to get some flow going in here. That might not be a bad idea. And then there's some jungle valsinaria in here. I don't know why I put that there, but I did. And then this, and I got to come up with the name. I was sharing about how I wanted to get some Blixa japonica, and Gil's Fishroom chimed in and suggested this plant. And so I found some on eBay, and I will put the name up. It's a cool little plant. He suggested that as an alternative to the Blixa because it looks similar enough. And then there's some cryptocoryne there. And there's a little Amazon sword back there, right there. And then a dwarf sage right here that I just came up floating the other day. So I just needed a home for it, tucked it in there. And it looks like there's a little piece of Java fern that broke off right there. It's floating, so it's settled. And back here, there's some Java fern there. And there's some wasatang floating back there. And it looks like it's really happy in this tank. Another piece right here, all across there. Big chunk of it back here. That's cool. And then up there, I've got a chunk of pothos and a piece of spider plant. And I also dropped 3 big yellow goldenback shrimp in here. And I saw one up on top of the jungle val. So I'm thinking they're probably all right. And I don't think there's anything here that could get to them. They were bigger than the fish. They seem to be one of the bigger neocaradinas. So they're probably around. And what else? So, and I've got this rock pile in there. And that chunk of floating plant that actually came in the cup with this new betta we bought last night at PetSmart with Samurai Sam, which is kind of cool. Their bettas look a lot better in the cups, and they all have little pieces of plants floating in them now. So anyway, I'm hoping the peacock gudgeons do their thing, get big, make little peacock gudgeons, because they are pretty. So I'm waiting for them to get a little bigger and start coloring up, start showing off some adultness. And then next to them here, I also had all these little knuckleheads, all these little crebensis, both albino and species looking. And we'll get over here in a minute, but they are the most recent fry from Carol here and Bob. So I siphoned them all out. They grew up in a fry tray, and then they've been in a couple other tanks. But they were in here with gudgeons and stir-by for a while, and I thought, I need to get them out. They're starting to get a little big, and let and I don't know if maybe there are less gudgeons in here, and the crebensis are why. I don't know. I don't know. If I find some more peacock gudgeons at the PetSmart, I will. That's where I got these. I'll get a few more to add into this. I'd like to have some sort of a stand of peacock gudgeons because they are really pretty. And there's one little one right there. I'm not sure if that's a little male. Kind of hard to tell when they're this small, I think. And then the other little one just sitting on the sand right there. And people said put the little tubes in because they like to be in tubes. That's probably a stir by Corey back there. The Corys like the tubes too. Anyway, and then next door, these are Mickey Mouse Platties. And these have been around. I had them in a 20-gallon tank on the rack, and I'll show you that in a bit. And then I moved them. I had a huge spawn, and there's also some little bronze Corys in here. And I took the adults out and put them in the tank in my office where there's the peppered Corys now. And there's a spot in all this video that I talk about that tank. But anyway, I moved the adults in there. They filled the tank with fry. I took them out, put them back in with these guys, and then ended up taking all the fry out of that other tank in the office and putting them in with these guys. And I've sold a bunch. So that's why it's not like crawling with these things, but there's a lot in here, and they're cute and they're fun. And I will sell more or trade more to my local fish store, which is, I'll throw his name out there, Brandon at Coachella Valley Aquatics. If you just, and I know it's the odds of that are next to nothing. If you happen to be in the Coachella Valley here, Palm Springs, Palm Desert, Rancho Mirage, Indio, Thermal, what else? Cathedral City, La Quinta, all those little towns. Yeah, I'm in Palm Desert. Desert Hot Springs. Anyway, yeah, come on down to Brandon's in the Coachella Valley Aquatics. So anyway, so yeah, I've got a couple potted plants in here. One of those, I think, is a Juncus right here. It's a sedge, and this one I can't remember because I've had it a long time and I never labeled it. I started labeling some of these plants and a bunch of guppy grass. And then when I bought, I think they're in another tank, bought some plants, they threw in some free plants. And that would be these free plants. Not sure what they are. They're floating in the top here. I don't do stem plants well, unfortunately. But they're there. So the stem plants that do all right are the pothos floating on the surfaces. A couple of them root down into the substrate when they get a chance, which is cool. Takes time. And then I threw this hang-on filter. This tank, this little 5 with the little crebensis, was the quarantine tank that I had set up for the royal whiptails that I have. And I took them out and cleaned this tank out, and it was full of sludge at the bottom, just stuff. And so I put this hang-on filter here to kind of clean it all out. So I can take this off now, and I will. And in the meantime, I've got this big pot of cryptocoryne in here because it was all slimy on the sides and something for the royal whiptails to feed off of. And I had banana leaves in there for them to feed off of. And also I was feeding green water. That seems to help, and baby brine shrimp. So they're doing well. They're in another tank. They're in my office tank. This is either I can't remember, and I figured that not too long ago, but I already forgot. Either the first or second of the 40 breeders that I have. Let me back up because they're pretty good sized tanks. And I got a bunch of junk on the counter in front of them. There's one and there's two. And I bought these on OfferUp. I think this is the first one. I think this is the second one. And what makes me think this is the second one, this has got some nice chips here. And it was out on the gravel in somebody's yard, a huge yard, big, I don't know, maybe a couple acre lot with a big barn and just sitting out on the rocks, just, So anyway, but I paid $30 for one and $35 for the other. This one is Bob and Carol's tank, and I've had them for a long time. I got 6 of these albino crebensis and lost 2. I had 3 males, 3 females. Lost the other 2 males. The other 2 females are in another tank with all the offspring, all the albino offspring from these 2. And then these 2 also produced a lot of offspring, about half and half, that don't look like albino at all. They look like the species. They've spawned, I don't know, half a dozen times or so, and usually just eat the spawn. There's little ditherfish in here, little ember tetras, and I love those. Those are just so pretty. There were 10. There's 4. I think I had Nick outbreak at one point, and they got hit. Everybody else in here was fine. It was just the ember tetras. So they keep spawning. These are the last ones. I siphoned them out. They were in this corner, and I saved them and put them in a fry tray on top of another tank. They keep acting like they're going to spawn again. They've dug a cave under this rock. there. They also use this cave. This is their original cave under this big chunk of wood. I salvaged, rescued this piece of wood from along the railroad tracks between here and Coachella Valley Aquatics one day. And so there's a big depression under that log that they dug out. And it's supported so it wouldn't cave in on them. I was aware of, I've had that happen before years ago. I had fish that dug actually cave in on themselves. So anyway, this tank's got, I've got dwarf sage that's getting buried here because they're tunneling, and some cryptocoryne, more dwarf sage. And this is another variety of an Amazon sword, and it is called melon, I believe. And it may be red melon. And a bunch of guppy grass, because I sell guppy grass. And so this tank is heated, and this tank produces guppy grass the fastest. So I bought all these other heaters to go in my 20-gallon tanks that I also go grow guppy grass in. And I just haven't set them up yet. So one of these days. And there's red cherry shrimp in here. There's usually a load of red cherry shrimp floating across. Let's see if I turn that. That makes it easier to see. All right, so there's a bunch. So when I sell red cherry shrimp, I usually pull them out of this tank. All right, and then I've got this piece of pothos that's not doing well. It's still got a couple leaves on the end, and I'll probably trim it off in it. And then a chunk of spider plant in this hang on back here. And it's completely anchored in. I've got to clean this. I've got a little piece of filter floss on one end. And this one's sort of rooted into the other piece of filter floss. So I'm just kind of leave it there. So I just clean out this one here. And there's one of those Higer double sponges tucked in the back there that still just bubbles and moves some water. And I think I've also got, I do, a big sponge filter in this tank. It's one of the large sponge filters. And then there's, I couldn't tell you how many now. False Julie corridors in there. There were, I think, 5. And there's another one hiding in the bush. There he is. They're so pretty. I really like those. And I had a bunch of hornwort in this tank before the guppy grass. And I moved it to another tank. And then, I don't know, maybe months later at some point, and I had a bunch of little 2-inch terracotta pots with little crypts. I bought these crypts in the plastic pots, and they were packed with little crypts. So I took them all apart and divided them up and put them into individual pots. And all of a sudden, I see a little corridor, a little false Julie, a little bitty thing. Maybe a quarter of an inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch long, and just cruising around the bottom and in and out of the pots. I thought, how cool is that? And it turned out, I'm pretty sure, that there were eggs in the hornwort, and that's how they got there. Because when I finally took all that apart, I think I found 4 more. I'm sorry, 3 more. So I think I found 4 total in there. I don't remember. It was either 3 or 4, like little surprise baby false Julie Corys. And that's kind of cool. And there should also be some autosynclus in here somewhere. And there's a couple giant plecosauruses in here. The big red-eyed, they're called, I got them from PetSmart. And they call them albino red-eyed plecos. And they're pretty good size. They're probably 6 inches now. And there's, I think, 2 of them in here. And they are wood chompers. And that's why the hang on back filter floss gets so dirty so fast, because they're not really algae eaters. They seem to be more wood chompers. And I was trying to get some more of the algae eaters last night, and I couldn't get anybody to wait on me, and they got them. So I'm going to have to go back and rattle somebody's cage. PetSmart has shitty customer service sometimes. They just, it's like they're kids, and they just don't want to make eye contact. They don't want to ask you, do you need help? And so it sucks. It really sucks. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Yep, there we go. Now he's just being a dick to poor little Carol. So anyway, yep, he's just in a mood right now. And they leave the little ember tetras alone. They could just turn them into meal, but they don't mess with them. So But anyway, that's this tank. That's one of my 40 breeders. While we're here, I need to put this in somewhere just before I end it, I suppose. I've also got a spawning mop in here that I dropped. I don't mess with it. I figure if they lay eggs, they'll hatch in here, and I'll get there it is down low. It's really hard to see back in there. I'll get surprise babies because that would be cool. Hopefully, we will get more of the little false Julies because I really like those two. They're one of my favorite Corys. And PetSmart sells them as the Julie, and I think they are the false Julie, the Trileniatus. I've got to clean this out because I just harvested some baby brine shrimp out of here. But this is got two of them. My DIY, DIY, do it yourself, brine shrimp hatchery. I've got a video. I think I've got a couple videos on how you make these and how to stock them and how to harvest out of them. So check those out. If I remember, I'll put them at the end. But they're in my hacks and DIY playlist, so you can go find them there too if you want. It's my other 40 breeder. And this one's gone through a bunch of iterations. Right now it is swordtails. And there are 3 green Corys in here somewhere. And a bunch of little swordtails. There's one of the Corys right there. And I'm not exactly sure what kind they are. But I had several in another tank and lost a couple of them, so I moved them into this tank. And they seem to be happier in here. And there's some big chunks of that same wood that's in my other 40 that I rescued from alongside the railroad tracks on the way to or from my local fish shop. And then there's a couple big Amazon swords in here. There's one at this end, one at this end, and this one is starting to make made a runner here, attached on this runner. It's well rooted too. And so that's good propagative material. That's free swordtails, or I'm sorry, sword plants, the Echinodoris, and I don't remember the species. And there's probably more coming up on this side, but you can also see how thick the jungle val is. And when I prune it, usually all I'll do is just grab a leaf, give it a tug, and kind of thin it out that way and drop those. And those leaves, I measured one that was over 5 foot long. And there's some of the Windalove Java fern in here. There are some of those albino red-eyed plecosauruses in here. There should also be Autosynclus in here. And this tank's been kind of weird. There's a lot of there's guppy grass in here that got in here, and I try and keep it out. And I've got hornwort mixed in here. I don't want the guppy grass taken over. Not in this tank. You can see how the jungle val it was in the back against the glass and how it's sort of run its way around. And it's run down around that rock. You can see the runner going over the rock in this case. Sometimes it goes under. And here we are. There's a runner popping up and over and back down into the substrate. And there's another whole plant there. So when I prune, when I thin leaves off the top, occasionally ones will come out. Here's one that I just prune the leaves back. I just grab a handful and just tear them off. And then the roots here aren't really big yet. There's a runner, a bit of the runner. It looks like that's a new runner with a new little shoot on it right there. And then this one, since it's been floating in the tank below, I'll show you that in a minute. Well, there it is. You can see look at the runners just going across the surface of the water. That's all I do. Just drop that in there. I got another one here. All right. And it's got runners. Oh my gosh. Looks like I'm going into the jungle val business too. Nice plant. I really do like it. And I just float it. Somebody said, why don't you try floating it and see what happens? Because I did this video on repotting some of those that I pulled out. And that's them. And they're doing fine. And eventually they'll say, there's one that's got a runner in there. You can just sort of see the runner. We'll come back to that. So anyway, what else is going on in this tank? Yeah, not a lot. This tank has been weird. This end, let's see if it happens now. Got a long pair of tweezers here. Look at these fish. So I was getting bubbles, lots of bubbles. There's some coming up. Big bubbles. The smell, there's bubbles coming up. Look at that. I don't know if it's methane or hydrogen sulfide. It smells like kind of hydrogen sulfide maybe, but I haven't had any fish die off from it. And I've noticed though that the rocks turn black when I flip rocks over. Look at that. And look at all the bubbles coming up. But you can see how black this rock is on the underside from whatever's going on there. Still, it's not been a problem other than those plexosauruses also being wood chompers. This filter just fills up in no time. And while I was still using the sponge and the bag of whatever it was that lived in these filters, the sponge would get really impacted and float up, and it would cause water to go over the back. And I came out here a couple times, and this tank's drained about halfway down because all the way as far down as the intake for that filter there. There's also a big sponge filter in the corner on this one back in there. And it's completely rooted in with pothos and philodendron. That dark green is the philodendron here, right? And then this pothos. That philodendron's just kind of gone, ape doo-doo. And I've got those little plastic pots, and I made a little wire just to suspend them there. And that's Sansevieria trifasciata, mother-in-law's tongue, snake plant. And it's doing really well, just floating there. Got another one here. And this one's actually kind of sent part of it outside the basket. And then there's also a piece of spider plant just stuck in there. And somewhere around here, there is right here, these leaves are anthurium. When they flower, they make that big heart shape. A lot of times it's red, and it's got the yellow, oh God, what's it called? It's an aroid plant, so it's the reproductive part that's got the male and female part all on that one piece. And I cannot remember what it's called right now. But they are pretty plants, the anthuriums. Make great house plants. And I took a piece off one we had on the patio. Glad I did, because this is what's left of it. Summer before last, it just fried out there. We went away for a couple weeks, and nobody watered on the patio for us, and that thing just turned to dust. So anyway, and then these guys, these are my neon orange swordtails. And the first batch of fry I had, where every one of them was a male. And I'm hoping out of all these, I will get some females and a mix. That's one of the original males with the lyre tail. And then all these bigger ones are the females. There's another one there. Oh, that's the male. There's a big one. So I lost one, maybe two over. I've had them for about 2 years. So I started with 6. And I think I lost 2 of the adults. So that's the original male. The other 5 were females, and I lost 2 of the adult females. And now I've got this whole herd, and they just keep making babies, and I couldn't tell you who's making the babies. And they get along really well with each other. You can see how small some are, and there's some that are even smaller. And they don't seem to predate on their fry. Of course, there's enough cover too, and there's also a load of red cherries in this tank. So this works. Whatever's going on with all the weirdness going on, the bubbles and the seriously heavily stocked and all the other stuff, it all seems to work. So, and I dropped some algae wafers in this tank with the swords, and you see how much the swords like it. And the cories will find their way out. I think it's so frenetic right now, they get a little free. There's one of the cories down there in the corner behind the jungle valve. And there's one of those big red-eyed albino plecosauruses coming up on the log right there. There should be another 1 or 2 in here. Well, I'm re-recording this part. I don't know, I was having mic trouble. My wife seems to think I had one of those Rode mics clipped on my t-shirt collar, and every time I turned my neck, according to my wife, it got too close to my throat, so it went, "Grr." It made awful noise. So you probably don't even know that, so I'll probably end up cutting this out. So anyway, these are my plastic 41 quart tubs. I got a pair of them here. And these are the kind, I guess people put sweaters and such in them, and, you know, blankets, and slide them under the bed or stack them with whatever. You know what I'm talking about. These came from Target. This is my pool noodle storage. I use those for the spawning mops I make and sell, for the scrubby mops. There's dwarf water lettuce floating in here. It looks like there's a little salvia minima in here too. And all the way in the back, that other plant there that's different from the dwarf water lettuce is Rickia water spangles. And there is a male betta in here somewhere. And he came out of my my big betta tank. And I put him in here because in the big tank, it looked like he was having trouble breaching. So I thought, you know, shallower water might help. And I had, what else did I have in here at one point? I don't even remember now. This has been through a couple iterations. There are white cloud mountain minnows. I don't remember if there are 5 or 6. I saw a dead one a while back, not a clue why. PetSmart fish. Get the roots off of that. There's some snails in here too. I think just ram's horns. I don't think there's any bladder snails in the house anymore. There might be a couple somewhere. I saw one the other day in my little Mickey Mouse platy tank, or saw 2 actually, caught them out and threw them in the trash. Anyway, so that's all that's really going on in here. I've got a spawning mop in here, and I don't know if those mountain minnows lay their eggs in there, or if they'll lay their eggs on the dwarf water lettuce roots. Not a clue. But anyway, I got to take this all apart. Maybe I'll put the mountain minnows in a tank, get them out of here. I'm not really sure. I was watching, it's been a while now, Patty's Aquatics. He had mountain minnows in a tub outside. He's pretty sure they all jumped out. I haven't seen any, so I'm hoping the cover here, the dwarf water lettuce cover. I always hear that fish that jump, you know, if you put a cover on, and not just a lid, a tank cover, but a plant cover, that gives them an idea where the surfaces are less inclined to jump. I don't know if that's true or not. And then in this one, I've got, it used to be guppies. I got all but a couple guppies out of here. There's a couple swimming around in there. There's one now. I think there's 2, and there's some, I think they're ram's horn snails. And then Salvinia minima floating in here, and that just took off. Look at how thick this mat is. And I gotta get rid of this. Look, it's starting to bunch up on itself. It's so thick. So I'm gonna do like handfuls on eBay, see if we can get rid of some of that. It's a pretty plant, and it's clean. It is duckweed free, which is nice. These both had duckweed in them, and I went to great lengths to just clear them out and put some clean plants back in, and it's been good so far. So yeah, Salvinia minima. So that's these 2 plastic 41 quart storage containers. I'm hoping they do something. They're pretty fish. They're really pretty little fish. So maybe they'll spawn for me. Maybe I need to get a couple more. I'm not really sure how they work. So more research, I suppose. But anyway, we'll move on to the next tank. This is my other 40 breeder. I showed you a little glimpse of this one with the jungle bell floating on the top there and down in the pot. And there's not a lot going on in this one. There was a load of ram's horn snails in here. There's a few bronze cories. There's blue dream shrimp. There might even be a rilly or 2. I guess that's a good thing. I don't know. There is this piece of manzanita with bucephalandra. I bought that bucephalandra in one of the betta cups, all stitched onto a piece of stainless steel wire or screen at PetSmart a while ago. Lost a bunch. Now there's something else coming up on this log back there, that spiny looking stuff. Staghorn algae or something like that, maybe. I got to get rid of that. Guppy grass. And then there's also some pots of Amazon sword back there. And those Amazon sword came from the 40 breeder with the 2 big Amazon swords that keep shooting out the runners with new plants. And also, if they get up out of the water, they will flower for you, which is kind of cool. So anyway, these are propagated from that. And there's just a big sponge filter in here. And occasionally I'll stick, I'll move those hang-on back filters around to kind of help get rid of a lot of the stuff that settles on the bottom. So I said there's also a bunch of blue dream shrimp in here. So there's not a lot going on in this tank right now. I got to figure out what to do with it. I think I may end up moving all my blue dream from one of the 20s behind me to this tank. There's a bunch of female tuxedo guppies in that tank. I've separated all the males out because I've just got more than I know what to do with, and I got to deal with that, both male and female tuxedo guppies. This rack, in the middle of the garage, is when I was trying to build that water change system on. On the middle shelf here, there are 429 gallons. 2 came new from PetSmart, 2 came used from OfferUp. I like OfferUp for tanks. And then below are 20-gallon, all new from PetSmart way back when. So this one here, we'll start here. It's one of the 29 gallons. And this has gone through some iterations. There were a bunch of swordtails that are in a 40 breeder in this tank once upon a time. And I don't remember what was before them. And then I took all them out, put them in a 40 breeder, and I had these guys. These are the spawn of Vanellope von Schweetz. She is in the kitchen tank in that 16-gallon water box. And there's there's an Amano shrimp back there, right there. There's a couple of Amano shrimp. There should have been a bunch, but some actually crawled out and ended up in the tank behind me. They just used the Pothos trail, I'm pretty sure. There's another one right there. And there's something going on in this tank. I got a lot of this sediment that all of a sudden started building up. It's all over the leaves. Look at that, all over these crypts. And that's an Amazon sword here. It's all over that crypt. And I don't remember the species. I'll put those up. There's another big crypt here. Got these from Tara's Tank Friends. And then in this old orchid pot, I've got some Java fern, and it's getting covered with that stuff too. I just got them tucked into the holes. And I don't know what's going on. This tank was spotless for a while. And maybe I had these other plecos, these algae-eating plecos that I've been moving them around. And I had them in this tank. And this tank was spotless for a while. Maybe I need to move them back. They are in a tank with a bunch of crebensis right now. So anyway, yeah, there's another one of the monos. I just dropped a bunch of those Aquatic Foods algae wafers in here. And everybody really likes those. And I think I'm going to take a female out of here and find Samurai Sam, our new betta that's in the 20-gallon in my office, and put them together and make a breeding tank. And I'll show you the whole process. I'll create a video, show you my process, see how that goes. So anyway, that's this one. A couple of lovely little Christmas gifts. There's Baby Groot from my granddaughters in Texas. And this one here, dead fish, tail no tails. Ha, love it. And this cool little terracotta pot that Kathy gave me, my wife, that just sort of got moved over there. It was in another tank. I'm just going to leave it there. I think I'll rearrange it so it's not laying on top of all the fish skeletons. And I got to figure out what to do with this tank. I don't know what's going on here. So maybe I was going to get some more of those little plecos last night and couldn't get anybody to wait on me. So maybe I'll go back there and push the button, rattle the cage, and get some service at that PetSmart. Maybe get half a dozen of those little plecos. They were got $8 a piece, so there's $50 worth of plecos. And I'll put 2 in this tank and two each in a couple other tanks, and for maintenance. So in the betta tank for filtration, I've got just a big sponge filter, and I've got a heater in, and it's not plugged in. It's just whatever ambient temperature is here in the garage. You can see all that sediment that's just building up around here. I siphoned a bunch out, and I've had a really nasty blue-green algae outbreak once, and I used that blue-green algae remover stuff, and I can't remember what it's called. Worked really well. One dose took care of it all. But I don't know if this is a different kind of algae coming back. Don't like it, don't want it, don't need it. This is the next tank, the next 29-gallon tank in the middle on this rack. And these are all the crebensis that look like species from Bob and Carol, the albino parents. And they are spectacular, aren't they? God, I love these fish. And I really need to thin them out and maybe keep a male and a female, or, a couple males and a couple females, and just clear out the rest and see if I can get some spawns out of these. But they really are pretty. And I should let Brandon know at my local fish shop, Coachella Valley Aquatics, to see if he can use some of these. Maybe we can work some trades. He's got some cories I think I want. Sponge filters in both this and the betta tank. Anyway, there's some little potted cryptocorynes in here that I got from Tara's Tank Friends. And this looks like a little sword that's not doing really well. This tank gets a lot of crud periodically. I got to do more water changes, I think, just to kind of thin out. Big sponge filter, pothos, Salvinium minima, had duckweed. I think I finally got rid of the duckweed. But anyway, that's this tank with these, and it's just a big old rock pile, big chunk, a big piece of a lava bomb from Bullhead City, Arizona, from where our son lives, and his apartment complex is off to the side. So I snagged that. So anyway, kind of cool. I love the lava. It's a great look. Very porous, holds a lot of beneficial bacteria. So on the other side of the rack, these are the albino siblings from the other crebensis on the other side of this rack. In fact, you might be able to see them. The females, there's two bigger females in here. They are two of the originals that I got with Bob and Carol. There's also a couple autosynclus in here. There's one on top of the rock, King of the Hill. There's a couple Amazon swords. This tank's been a problem. Yeah, I've had some problems with this tank. A lot of weird sedimenty stuff. I put some little crypts. There's no substrate under there. It's just the gravel strata. Just never done well. I really need to take this tank apart. And I got to find homes for these guys, guys and gals. There's a nice mix of males and females in there. They are pretty. And they're fun fish. They are fun fish. And I've moved those big plecos that I think I was talking about in the betta tank. And I got to get some more. And I had a pair of these big plecos in here, and they cleaned this tank up really nice. Now I moved them out, and it just goes to poo again really quickly. So that's that one. And this is the fourth 29 gallon. Not too long ago, this tank was full of fancy guppies. And I don't know, there had to be a couple hundred. And I just fished them all out. I missed a couple in a couple other tanks, and I brought them all to all but the couple I missed to Brandon over at Coachella Valley Aquatics. I've got a little of that blue-green algae coming out here. And my buddy Jeff Pelham's Aquatics, said his black mollies eat that stuff. So these are the last 2 out of 7 that I bought that didn't do well. And I'm hoping maybe they'll eat this stuff. I seriously doubt that I have a male and a female there out of those, but it'd be cool. So I've thrown some potted plants in here for a couple reasons. One, they were kind of quarantining. I just bought these 3. And I'm using these little plant tags now, Helianthemum Vesuvius. So these are I think they're the spiral or corkscrew Amazon swords, and they're not doing really well. They came in 3 little bitty plants in a Ziploc bag, and it's not my favorite. And then I got these. This is a small valve scenario. I got a bunch of them from Brandon over at Coachella Valley Aquatics, and I separated them all out. And there's Miracle Grow potting soil in there. And then I planted them and then covered it with pool filter sand. That's what this whole tank is. And then some crypts from other tanks. I just moved them in here in the pots. Also, it's either pond soil. I can't remember whether I put those in pond soil or Miracle Grow soil. And then planted them and then covered them with the pool filter sand to keep the soil from coming up and out. These are dwarf chainsword, I believe. And I haven't labeled those, and I really need to, because I've got a box full of these little plastic labels, and you write on them with pencils, so nothing's going to, get hurt. And then there's another one of these little swords, and I think that one is called, it might be another one of the melon swords, like I have, I've got a big melon sword in a 40 breeder with Bob and Carol, the albino cories. And then I got these koi kahaku swordtails. It's a male, and the female is hiding down there, and I'm really hoping they will make little koi kahaku swordtails for me. And then I also got a bunch of ember tetras to get them bigger to go back in with Bob and Carol in the other tank. I really like those. And maybe I'll just keep these separate, and maybe as they get bigger, I will try and spawn them. Just cause, give it a shot. And then I've got this, I think it was little crypts. Might have been a little, give me a minute, I know this one. Pink flamingo cryptocoryne. So, and I've got this stuff growing on the top of this sponge filter. Don't like it. And there's an Amano shrimp in here. There were a couple. In fact, there were 3 at one time. And I moved one out, and I think I must have lost one, or it crawled out, because they came from that tank with the bettas behind there. And they came over. There was a bunch more pothos and philodendron growing up and over. And I think they just, went on a walkabout and ended up from that tank over there into this tank over here. And I just saw it. It's around here somewhere. I really like Amano shrimp because they get pretty good size, and they're just kind of fun to watch. And I don't know that they do much. They pick and clean, so they're probably beneficial to some degree. So, and there's one of the mollies, and there's the other one there. And everybody seems to like these aquatic foods, algae wafers. So I give them to all the fish. So that's the last of the 29 gallons. Then on the bottom of the rack, we'll go right to left, is this 20. And it's gone through some different iterations as well. And there's not much in the way of plants in here. There's some pieces of hornwort and a piece of guppy grass. And there's a couple pieces of java fern that are glued down to one of these resin logs that I got from PetSmart. And this big piece of mopani, and that's why the water's so tanniny looking. And it's been floating for a long, well, Sigmund, but been around for a very long time, and it still kicks off lots of tannins, and it's okay. And I got these mixed platies, and I think there might be a couple Mickey Mouse, and I'm not sure what the other kind are. I got them from Jason, 5-Star Betta, in one of Jeff Pelham's auctions towards the end of the year last year. And they're doing really well, and they'll get big, and they will make little platies for me. And if there's Mickey Mouse in here, I think I saw a couple Mickey Mouse, maybe one. Anyway, if there are, I will grab some of my Mickey Mouse, put them together, and see what kind of new variations we come up with. And this tank is full of yellow golden-back shrimp, and you can see them on the glass. You can see them all over that Mopani wood, and they're doing really well. There's a bunch of them down below. Everybody, again, likes these aquatic foods algae wafers. I'm starting to think maybe, what am I missing? Yeah, probably not, but they're cool. So anyway, that's not a lot going on in this tank, but yay. And then a tank full of guppies next door here, 20 gallon. These are all 20s on the bottom, except one little 5 tucked in the middle. They're these yellow guppies that I have really no idea what I got. I got them at PetSmart. And I mixed in fancy guppy females because that's what I had, and I really shouldn't have. So, and I'm not seeing any big males, so I have no idea what's coming out of these, but I think I'm just going to get rid of them all. And I wouldn't mind being guppy free, to be honest. They multiply so damn fast, and they're just, I like guppies, and I like them better, I think, when they're somebody else's. So we'll see. And I've gotten these kind of, almost like snake skin, right? And I will catch that one out and move it elsewhere. I've got another small tank, another 5 with some other, what look like snake skins that I think I've culled out of this tank. And then this tank really is all about guppy grass and, orange sunkissed shrimp. And this is where I collect my orange sunkissed shrimp when I sell them. There's a couple Amazon swords in here, and these were also from the 2 big Amazon swords out of my 40 breeder. They produce really well, that big one. So I've snapped them off. And little Nemo's back there with one of the Amazon swords in him. And he kind of got lost behind this. I think it's a piece of Bird of Paradise leaf. It does. Bird of Paradise leaf is good. It doesn't break down as quickly as the banana leaves. Much softer tissue on the banana leaves. But this works really well for the shrimp like it. Should be a couple auto sinkless in here too. And these tanks stay pretty clean. In fact, the guppy grass stays really nice and clean as well. I've got that tank with the koi kahaku swordtails that I had guppy grass in, and it got really, dirty, really algaed. And I don't know why. And I've got this other tank I'll show you in a bit, if I haven't shown you already, with lampi tetras, and I can't sell that guppy grass because I've just got to pull it all out, throw it away, and try and start over and see if I can get clean guppy grass to grow in it. It's covered with algae. So anyway, that's the yellow guppies. And if anybody knows what kind of guppies those are, chime in, please. There's, I think, 4 males in there. And then the orange sunkissed shrimp, which are very, very cool. Lots and lots. It's pretty guppy, whatever that is. It's snakeskin. And this, look at the guppies. Oh my God, they're like cockroaches. And I've pulled most all the males out. I think I see another little male forming down there. I just threw some of the algae wafers in there. I should have 10 or 11 pandacories in here, and they must be going nuts with all these guppies. And there's blue dream shrimp in here. And that's what this is supposed to be, my blue dream shrimp tank. And I think what I'm going to have to do is, I don't know I got to get all the guppies out. I got to, these are all tuxedos. There's a little male right there with the little red tail, a couple of them maybe. These are red tail tuxedos, and then just fry. And that I've got this 40-gallon tank with the potted jungle valsinaria and There's some potted Amazon swords in that piece of wood, manzanita wood with the bucephalandra on it. And and there's blue dream shrimp in that tank. And I had tuxedo guppies in there. So I cleaned all the guppies out of that tank, put all the fry and obvious females in this tank, and put the males in another tank that I will show you in just a second, because I don't need more. So I got to get those little males out of here. And I'm still getting more. Look at how many little tiny guppies there are. This is not a quality problem. This is just a pain in the keister. And there's an Amazon sword there. There's probably a couple back there. There's sponge filters in all these tanks. And there's guppy grass in here that I harvest from and sell. There's a banana leaf right there that the shrimp love. I can't remember. I don't think there's any autocinkless in this tank, and it mostly stays pretty clean with the load of blue dream shrimp that were in here. And I'm not sure if that's part of my problem. I think is that the guppies picking off the blue dream shrimp fry, so I'm not seeing a lot of or fry shrimplets, whatever you call them, the littlest, the fresh ones. So I got to get the guppies out of here. Either that or get the blue dream out of here. And I think I like the idea of being able to have multiple levels of product in the same tank, shrimp, fish, and maybe, like cories is one, plants and shrimp or something else. I don't know. But I think too many guppies are just picking off too many shrimp. I'm not sure. I wouldn't be at all surprised. And we'll move over to this tank. And this tank has these guys. These are wild type mollies that I got from Mexicali Fish Keeper. They, as far as I remember, they came straight out of the Colorado River. And there should be some fry in here. There are 4 adults, and I think there's some fry in here. Yeah, there's one. So that's cool. And I don't know if these are just seasonal breeders or what. And there's red cherry shrimp in here. And I got this huge swordtail for $10 at PetSmart one day. I went in and thought, oh, that's cool. And I got sidetracked with the help and forgot to get it. I went back the next day and got it. I was looking for peacock gudgeons and they didn't have any. And it turns out they did because the guy didn't know what he was talking about. And I didn't see him the first pass. So I went back the next day to get this big Echinodoros and got their, I think, the 5 blue or peacock gudgeons that they had. And anyway, different sidebar, huh? But that's the story of this plant. I dropped it in here to kind of quarantine it because I had recently treated this tank, something called no planaria, to get rid of these tanks, get rid of bladder snails. These tanks on the bottom here were all overrun with bladder snails. So I started using no planaria on this tank first. And I got a lot of mixed, comments. Now it'll never work, blah, blah, blah. And it just took out every bladder snail I have. I've got that 40-gallon breeder with all these dead ram's horn snails at the bottom. I treated that tank for bladder snails. It took them all out. I don't know, 2, 3, 4 weeks later, I treated again because I thought maybe it would take out the ram's horn snails. And well, it didn't appear to, but here we are a couple months later. I noticed one day I was looking at the tank, all these empty shells at the bottom. It just took a little longer. No planaria tells you to remove any snails you like because it'll probably kill all the snails, but maybe just over a longer period of time. And I would also hesitate to put snails back into a tank that no planaria was in. If there's any kind of substrate, you may want to, maybe those mollies are gonna breed for me. That would be cool. Some more of these wild type mollies. They're really pretty. The male's really pretty. Got this beautiful kind of a sail fin. But anyway, I'd be very hesitant to reintroduce desirable snails into a tank that's been treated with no planaria. So keep that in mind. If you want to get rid of snails, it works. And there's rumor back and forth that they're taking it off the market. As far as I know, it's still available. I think I bought 1 pack, and then I think I bought 3 or 4 more just to have it. They're foil sealed. They'll keep. Just know if you're going to get rid of snails like bladder snails, maybe even Malaysian trumpet snails, it'll work. It may take time with the Malaysian trumpet snails. A lot of people say the only way to get rid of Malaysian trumpet snails is to get rid of the substrate. I think the no planaria will work in time. So you don't have to get rid of the substrate. Just treat it and then just be patient and maybe treat twice. Follow the instructions and you can be snail free if that's your choice. It was mine. I'm not a big fan of snails. I do have a tank full of ram's horns still, and I'll show you that in another part of this, my 75 gallon, and I'm just accepting those for now. Eventually I might treat to get rid of those as well. This is the last of the 20s on the bottom rack, and it's kind of a side view because I can. And these are 5 lampi tetras in here, and it started out like a quarantine tank. And when I set it up, I set one of these little takeout trays with some guppy grass in it and some rocks to hold the guppy grass down, hoping that maybe they would spawn over it, and who knows if they did or not. And then I thought, well, I'll drop an eyelash yarn mop in here too. Maybe they'll spawn over that, and once again, who knows if they did or not. And there's a shrimp in here. Actually, there's a couple shrimp in here. There's another one right there. And then a large sponge filter that's absolutely alive with whatever that is, that green hair algae, I guess. Guppy grass attached to it. And this is a tank that I was having problems with the guppy grass also, where it just gets dirty, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm just not doing enough water changes for it, and so I've really got to step that up. It's just awkward, and I should know better though. I mean, it's part of the gig. I've got to bring the hoses in, one to drain, one to fill, and at least now, I can fill off of that rig there, that thing, and it works pretty well. Didn't blow apart the last time I did a water change a couple days ago, and I've got an update on that coming, on that whole water change rig that I built. There's the outflow with a big pre-filter on it to keep anything from getting sucked up, and it only moderately because of the low proximity to the floor, so I don't get a lot of good siphon on it. And I was going to put a pump at the other end to draw water. People suggested that, and geez Louise, I didn't believe how expensive they are. I can't find one that just goes garden hose to garden hose that's not submersible, that's under $100. There's got to be something out there. If anybody knows, chime in, please. Anyway, back to the sidebar. Back to the lampis. They're doing well. They're really pretty fish. I think what I'm going to ultimately do is get them out of here, put them in the 75 behind me. It's kind of an Amazon tank. It's got angelfish in it. It's got a pair of angelfish, Joe and Charlie. We'll see it in a bit. And it's got some black skirt tetras, and it's also got some bronze cories. So anyway, that's this tank, and that's the end of the 20 gallons on this lower rack. Then I've got 2 5 gallons tucked in on this rack out here, this middle rack. One of them's, this one's on the top, or the middle shelf actually, sandwiched between 2 29s. And I've called out these, I don't know, like maybe snakeskin. There's a couple in there. They came from the tank below with these yellow guppies, and I ended up dropping them here. And there's a small sponge filter back there. There's a bunch of ram's horn snails in here. I took some out, sent a handful to only Oscar's when I shipped her some plants the other day. And did I say guppy grass? There's guppy grass in here, and there's probably some orange sun-kissed shrimp in here too. There were, so hopefully there still are. They're not gonna go nuts in here, but I just threw a few shrimp in here just cause. And then there's this other 5 gallon on the bottom rack, sandwiched between 2 20s, and these are the male tuxedo guppies. I already showed you where all the female tuxedo guppies were in with the panda cories and blue dream shrimp. And I got all of those out, and except for one, I'm looking at it right now. And I put them in a separate 5 gallon, all the females in the fry. And as males develop, I put them in here. And I'm slowly selling these off as trios. If anybody's interested in multiple trios, what I did was, it was 4 males and 8 females? 2, 4, 6, 8, yeah. It's 4 males and 8 females. So 4 trios for $25 plus $25 shipping. And it works, and they're nice. And when I scoop out the females, fry just sort of get in the net. So, the last order I sent out, there was probably closer to 20 fish in it. I don't mind doing that to kind of thin out the population. I think I said in that other tank at some point I'd like to go guppy free, and I still would. And here's that final 5 gallon with all the female tuxedos, the female and fry tuxedos that I scooped from So that's it. And it's just a bare bottom sponge with a sponge filter, a small sponge filter, and a little bit of guppy grass to keep the guppies happy, I guess. I'll put a little more guppy grass in there. They could probably use it. More hidey holes. So anyway, that's it on the fives. Then I've got this one. I think it's about 8.5 gallons. And this was another rescue from OfferUp. You could tell that it was somebody was using it for reptiles because it's all fried from their heat lamps. And it's been a catch-all for plants. And this is one I had a big problem with. I killed a lot of the plants. I overtreated. Had blue-green algae and a bunch of other algae in here. The blue-green algae I treated with that blue-green algae remover. Slime away? I don't remember. Maybe I'll figure it out. Oh, there's shrimp in here. And I just fried a bunch of crypts with overdosed with hydrogen peroxide. Took care of the algae. Took care of the plants too. Too much. A lot of Java fern, and there's some crypts in pots. And I had some other crypts across the front. I think they were crypt parva. Lost all those. So I got to go back through here, this little box, and clean it up, see what I kind of inventory what I got. And stuff in the pot here. None of it seems to be doing well. Well, that's I think Lobelia cardinalis actually. And behind it is Brazilian pennywort. And there was a bulb, I think it was a tiger lily or lotus, one of the little bulbs that I stuffed in there. I don't know if it'll come back or not. And there's some sawasatang in here. It's kind of a mishmash. There's a piece of that lobelia floating and some more of the Salvinia minima. And one of these, somebody goes, why do you have these little turds floating in your tank? Well, there was a 5-pack of turds from PetSmart. And I bought a couple of, maybe one, I don't remember. And I got a couple nice surprises out of it. One was a lily, one was a potogeton, and the other couple were these things that never did anything. So there's another one there. So I don't know what they are. They're just still floating around. And they collect a little bit of algae and the shrimp feed on them. So I just leave them in there. It can't hurt anything. This is my 75 gallon. This is another rescue from OfferUp. It's just been evolving. It hasn't gone through different iterations. It's just been evolving, which has been so far so good. Joe and Charlie live in here. Joe is, I guess, the koi to the right, and Charlie is, a red devil maybe to the left. And I'm hoping they're pairing up. They spend a lot of time together. They get along well. They came in together. And then there's black skirt tetras here. There's 2, 3, 4. There's 5. I guess I lost a couple maybe somewhere down the line. And a bunch of little bronze cories. There should be a dozen or more clown plecos in here that I have not seen in months. And they could still be alive and just tucked in the rocks somewhere. And I threw 2 surviving hillstream loaches in here. I think I found one dead, but the other one never. Usually fish come out when they die. So it's like their last gloat, I want to throw a couple of those little Plecostomus in here that PetSmart has, the algae-eating ones, not those red-eyed albino ones, because they don't seem to chew on anything but wood. So there's a lot going on in here. This is the tank that I ended up saw cutting all those chunks of rock in the back. I got a video on that, on how I went about saw cutting these pieces of rock and stacking them. And there's a piece of styrofoam behind and another piece of styrofoam underneath just to cushion the glass. This started out with the dwarf sage in the front here. Where's my finger? Right there. And some over in this corner and across there. And that's the, I think, called red flame Echinodoros. And there's a couple of the other melon swords. There's one there. And then there's another one down behind these two. And there's an Anubias. And that is Brazilian pennywort right there. And a bunch of crypts. And there's a little pink flamingo crypt tucked in back here. And what else we got going here? And this, one of those red tiger lotus, if I'm wrong, correct me. And then there's some tucked in, there's some Java fern tucked in the rocks. Hasn't done really well in this tank. Little piece of sawasatang back in there. And back in that corner, I have caught Charlie, the big one, upside down, stuck in there. He'd go through this cave back here and come out, try and get out. Twice I caught him. I'm so glad. I just happened to walk by just after he got stuck. And finally I blocked off that cave, fooled me once. Well, it took twice. I'm so glad I didn't lose him. I have tried to get more angels in this tank to no avail. Maybe someday. I don't know. And I've got a couple pieces of manzanita stuck in there. They're just resting. There's one right here, and this other one right here. And I tuck that, it's a bulbitis, that fern right there. And you can see how they reproduce off the ends of the fronds, right? Kind of cool. And it's just resting in a little notch there on that manzanita. And then I've got a bunch of pothos along the top here. And also, there's a piece of anubias on a rock there, right there. And then all the roots coming down from the pothos. And I try and guide them into around the front of the rocks and eventually towards the substrate. And they'll anchor, they'll root. And I thought, for good or ill, put some jungle val at this end, and I did. And it's starting to spread. I put 3 pieces, and they were on a runner, and I just left them. I didn't take them apart. You can see those are 2 of the original pieces. I think the other one was one of these here, and it was really tiny. But the other 2 with the torn leaves had big, tall leaves. So I just tear the leaves back. I think it makes them easier to transplant, less shock because there's less going on with the foliage. I don't know if that's as true with aquatic plants as it is with terrestrial plants. It seems to help when you remove some of the foliage when you do root damage on terrestrial plants, plants that grow in the garden, in the ground. And you can see it's starting to go. And I thought, well, more cover, a little, maybe more security for the fish. So I don't know. I'm hoping Joe and Charlie here pair. They look like they could be male and female. Charlie being the male, the orange one, and Joe being the female, the silvery and orange one. And I'm hoping maybe that these black skirt tetras drop eggs, either in the Sagittaria. Of course, then there's always the cories feeding on them. There's a lot of them in there, the bronze cories. I've had the bronze cories spawn in this tank, and that's where the littler ones come from. I got them all out, had them in other tanks, and put some back in here. And some of the bronze cories in some of the other tanks that I have are from the adults here. I started with some Valsinaria at this end, and I'm not sure if this is corkscrew or what, but I think Jody P might be sending me some corkscrew val. So there will be some corkscrew val, even if this is not. And here's that Apanogeton that came from the, what's it called? The PetSmart packet of bulbs that was, not great, but this was certainly, that's a beautiful plant. This was certainly nice. I'm going to go around to the side. I didn't clean the glass there. I probably could before I take you around the side. But anyway, this is the Apanogeton here. That's its flower coming up. All right. And that's its stalk, just that kind of nondescript flower stalk coming up. And the flower coming out of the water there. It flowered last year for me too. And this thing completely died out, all the foliage. I thought, okay, well, it's done. I got my thing out of it, And it turned out, came back. There's some more of the Brazilian pennywort there. Yeah, this side doesn't look great, but that's it. Looks nice plant. And then I've got just a big aqua clear hang on this one. And it keeps water moving pretty well. And I've got a heater in this one. I think it might be on, actually. Let me see. Yeah, it's set to 72. It's just in case, I guess, it gets too cold out here. And there's a mini split up here. Heat and AC, and right now the heat's on because it's been cold outside. It's still winter. And then in the summertime, I put it in AC mode to keep it, reasonably cool out here. It'll get over 100 degrees in the garage if we let it. And Kathy keeps her car in here, so the car stays, a little more comfortable too. I put Blue Dream Shrimp in here a few times, and I saw one once, a big one that kind of came out from underneath these rocks down here and then disappeared. So there may be Blue Dream Shrimp back there in the rocks as well. So one day I may see some surprises in here with a Hillstream Loach or 2, and maybe a whole bunch of clown plecos, and maybe some Blue Dream Shrimp. You just never know. So, and then this is the tank I built that first permanent water change system here too. That's it right there. It's got a strainer from a Graco airless paint sprayer at the bottom to keep things from getting sucked up like little fish or a shrimp, which isn't an issue. Doesn't seem to be. Comes up and over. All right, comes up and over. So then it comes down here and it comes out, and that's a ball valve, and it's in the off position right now, perpendicular to the line, to the flow. And then the water would go down, and I connect a garden hose to this and run it outside. So it's full of water. It's permanently charged. If I open this, it's going to start draining the tank out. It was pretty quick too. And so that's the beginning of the permanent drain system that I was trying to create for the other tanks. And I've got a whole video on how I did this, and it's interesting. You may get something out of it. First time I saw this was Adrian's fish room, and he built a little one like this for one of his neighbors, and that's what gave me the idea to build this one. And this one extends out past both ends, just so I've got something to anchor it here with these zip ties. Right, just kind of holds it there in place. That was the only reason there's extra pipe there. It really didn't need to be. All it needed to do was come out and turn a corner just far enough to get a bucket under there if I wanted to. And that's all his is they run a bucket under it. But I wanted the idea or the option to be able to run a garden hose out. And there's that Aponogeton flower spike coming out. It'll probably be open in the next couple days. If that's the case, I'll do a quick short on it just to share it with everybody. So anyway, 75 gallons. I really like this tank. And it's evolved. It's growing. Needs a water change. I've got that 20-gallon tank with the Lampi tetras, and they may end up in here. And it'd be more tetras in this tank. It's, kind of all South American-y, except for the plants, I suppose. And it's I like this tank. And this is the tank I do still have ram's horn snails in. They're not bad. And occasionally somebody wants to buy my ram's horn snails. So I reach into this tank and grab out a handful and put them in a bag and ship them to wherever they want them. So, and it keeps them kind of at bay so they don't completely take over everything. Seems like there were a lot more in here than there are right now, which is good. Because, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of snails. But yeah, who cares, right? Nobody needs to hear that except me. But now you all heard it too. So anyway, that's it. That's the whole shebang. That's all of my tanks, the long tour, including and I hope you all enjoyed this. I haven't done a full tour like this in quite a while, but I appreciate you all for watching. I'm really grateful you're here. If you're a member, thank you. Thank you very much to my members. Love you all. And if you've gotten anything out of this, I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. Give it a like, thumbs up, whatever you call it, whatever you want to call it. And like I always say, thanks for looking.